Alright guys, so in this session we will be discussing the scope of sociology. So another important topic. So we have already done with the emergence of sociology. Now the next topic is the scope of sociology. See, when it comes to this topic, I don't want you to mug up anything, or you don't want to memorize anything, and you don't want to study this topic as such at this point of time. It will be automatically covered when you're done with the syllabus. So if the question is asked on the scope of sociology, your answer is basically the syllabus itself. If you can understand and if you study that, you just summarize and you need to write the answer. I'll tell you the structure, the flowchart and everything that you need to follow. So if you see, sociology emerged in response to challenges posed before modernity in medieval Europe. See, any question from the first three chapters, you need to write that first line, which is about the emergence of sociology. So you will be writing this: sociology emerged in response to challenges posed before modernity in medieval Europe. So you're talking about modernity, you're talking about challenges, and you're talking about emergence. And since its emergence, what the initial sociologists wanted to do, they wanted to make it similar to natural science. And they have developed different methods and different perspectives, etc. for that. So you can see the scope is widening, right? And we can divide that scope in different phases, and you can add different thinkers in each of these phases when you start studying the thinkers. So for example, let me talk about the initial phase. Let's say first phase. That can be from 1838 to 1890. Okay, and then could be the second phase, which could be 1890 to 1940. And then I can say third phase, 1940 to 1990. And then fourth phase, I can divide something as 1990 to till now, the postmodernism and everything I can bring in that area. So which all thinkers you will mention here? You can talk about Auguste Comte. I'll just write AC only. Auguste Comte. You can talk about Herbert Spencer, right, etc. Saint-Simon if you want. So these are you can mention in the initial phase. And when it comes to 1890, 1940, there are so many which you can mention. Here is where micro, macro perspectives and the divisions are coming. Okay, so the debates are coming based on micro, macro, scientific, humanistic, positivism, non-positivism. All that debates will come here. So two prominent thinkers that you need to discuss here will be Max Weber and Emile Durkheim. So Max Weber belonged to micro, Emile Durkheim belonged to macro. And since during this time, sociology started teaching as an independent discipline in different universities towards the end of 19th century and the beginning of 20th century, towards this 1890 period onwards. So during this time, two schools of thoughts were emerged. That's what? Formal and synthetic schools, which were the followers of Weber and Durkheim. So we will be talking about that. Apart from that, we can also mention Taunis, von Wies, Kant. All these thinkers can be mentioned. I'll bring that in the PDF, or I have actually given in the notes, which you can download, and or you can get the course completely. And then 1940 to 90, there's a period where you see a lot of integrated approach. See, if you're considering micro reality, you're ignoring the whole macro aspect, which can influence your behavior. If you're considering macro, you are ignoring the individual behavior. Okay, so both are required, micro and macro, which is required. So here you will see a kind of integrated approach, and we will from our syllabus we can talk about Parson, we can talk about Merton. So Parson integrated micro, macro, right? And then you can say Merton is coming up with middle range theories instead of too abstract theory or very elementary theory, right? And there are many other thinkers also which we will be discussing. C. Wright Mills has sociological imagination thought, and we will be seeing Karl Popper, integration of inductive and deductive approach, C. Wright Mills, scientific and humanistic approach. So all these combinations we will be discussing here. I'm just giving you the structure for the way you're going to present this answer. And then postmodernism, a lot of disciplines has been integrated. Like now you can see sociology of health, clinical sociology, criminal sociology. So that's again, you can bring postmodernism and even AI. Now, if you recently talk about artificial intelligence and the role of sociology, so all these can be brought in your answer. So your answer should be framed in this way. So what you can see, it is evolving. The scope is broadening, scope is widening. Sociology is now getting into multiple, disciplines also. So a combination of, other disciplines is also like what I've mentioned about clinical sociology, criminal sociology, right? Sociology and artificial intelligence. It can be a potential question, okay? So let's get started. I told you the way you write the answer. Sociology emerged in response to the challenges posed before modernity in medieval Europe. That's how you will be starting with. And then initial sociologists wanted to make it as similar to natural science. So they started using different methods and perspectives and other things you can mention. And the scope of sociology is gradually widened. And you can also say it can be understood in different phases. And these are the phases. You can draw some tree diagram and then you can show. And each of these phases you can elaborate further. So from here, I'll quickly go through this. Everything is there in the notes. Everything is there in the lectures, the actual course. So I hope you have already gone through that. Okay. So now, early foundation, which you already know. Auguste Comte, in his book, he's actually mentioning that sociology should study social statics and social dynamics. Now, what do you mean by social statics? Those unchanging items. What is social dynamics? The changes which can happen. Right. So if you remember when I discussed about paper 2, one of the book that you need to follow, where I've mentioned the name of the book, Social Structure and Social Change. That's what social statics and social dynamics. Social change is nothing but social dynamics, the things which keep on changing. So both need to be there. So Comte proposed studying structure and organization of society and also examining social changes and their impacts, the changes in family, the changes in religion, changes in any elements of society. He brought positivism. See, positivism, non-positivism, we have covered everything, but in the coming session, we will be discussing shortly, revision. Okay, now Herbert Spencer also promoted a macro approach and positivist approach. So he basically compared society with an organism. See, if society is similar to organism, so like the way you study organism, you can study society. So that means sociology is similar to biology. Now, if you look at this organism, which is having, like, if you see society have different systems, subsystems. Society as a whole is a system which in itself have subsystems like economic system, political system. So I'll be writing here, subsystems in society are similar to organs in the body. Right, we have economic system, political system, social, whatever systems you have. Similarly, in organism or organs are there, right? And then you can see the organs, social society to organ. Here it is society compared with an organism. Social institutions, that's what I mean by subsystems, into organs of that system. And then groups. So further within subsystems, you will see small groups, right, which are similar to tissues. And what is the ultimate reducible element when it comes to society? Which is individual. So similarly, individual is compared with what? Cells in the body or the organism. So this is actually the comparison he have made and made us believe and try to prove that it's similar to natural science like biology. If society is similar to organism and this are similar to organs, tissue, cells, then you can apply a scientific approach and the way you study biology can be used here also. That's the idea. And he proposed an evolutionary perspective as well. And if you see initially, one of the most important perspective which is used in sociology is evolutionary perspective. You will see that in Durkheim, in his theories, and you will be seeing that, Karl Marx, when we discuss about historical materialism, the evolution of society also we will see. Even in Parson also we will be discussing. So this is a very important perspective which is initially used in sociology. Okay, now I told you that's the first phase you can mention Comte and Spencer. Second phase, you need to mention Max Weber, Durkheim, and some other thinkers like Weerkant, von Wies, Taunis you can use. Okay, that's the second phase. And I told you about micro, macro. Micro means individual focused, macro means society focused. Okay, so Max Weber is talking about more of micro approach, focusing more on individual, and he focus on study of individual action and establish cause and effect that lead to the entire, societal aspect. So individual actions is given importance, whereas Durkheim, who is following macro, focus more on society, and society influence individual to do certain things. So that approach is macro. So one side micro, Weber, the other side macro, that is Durkheim and their followers. And they have divided into two schools of thoughts, that is formal school and synthetic school. That's what you need to mention in this. I hope this is very clear. So for Weber, it is all about, sociology is all about understanding the meanings attached by the actor to the action. You study the action taken by individual and try to understand the meanings established by the actor and arrive at an explanation of cause and effect. Guys, now it may feel slightly difficult for you, but when we move to thinkers, this is going to be very easy for you. When we start with Weber, then this is like a cakewalk. So don't worry about anything. Don't break your head at this point of time on this particular discussion that I have done, the meanings attached by the actor, cause and effect and everything. Leave it. Okay, we'll come back. Okay, so here social action, that's what Weber proposed to study, and he gave methods like Westerhand. This we need to study separately. Okay, methods used by Weber, that can be a separate question. Westerhand can be a separate question. Ideal types can be a separate question. All these will be discussed in thinkers, but I've added here only to tell you that you don't want to prepare this topic at this point of time. Once you're done with Weber, these are automatically covered over there. You just need to write one line if the question is asked about scope of sociology, because all these are separate questions. You are preparing this for 300 words. For 20 marker you are preparing this, and for this also you'll be doing the same. So writing one line here won't be a task. Okay. Now Durkheim's macro approach. So he want to study social facts. So studying external forces, which means you following macro, giving importance to society. On Weber, if you look at micro, giving importance to individual. Now collective conscience, he explored the shared beliefs and moral attitudes in society. So he is giving importance to society and the values of society, influences of society. He followed this perspective functionalism. We'll be discussing this in detail and trying to understand the interconnectedness of the system, complements of each system. So all we will be discussing in the coming session. So don't break your head at this point of time. Okay, so this is what formal synthetic school, followers of Weber, followers of Durkheim. So formal schools are the followers of basically Weber. They followed micro-analysis, giving importance to individual. Synthetic school, followers of Durkheim, and they followed the macro level analysis. So next stage, what will be? Both Durkheim and Weber are important. Both their perspective is important. Both their views is important. Individual is important. Society is important. So if you're studying micro, you are ignoring macro. That's a partial understanding. If you're studying macro and you're ignoring micro, that's again a partial understanding. So if you need to have a combined understanding, you need to combine the macro and micro and have to go with an integrated approach. That's it. That's the next stage. That's where I'll be discussing Parson, Merton, etc. Okay, so convergence, later approaches. So to bridge the perspectives. So Parson and Merton. So if you see, Parson will be discussing structural functionalism later, and his theory also, there's a very important theory we will discuss later. That 1 or 2 lines you need to add here, and you need to tell that he actually combined micro, macro, and went for an integrated approach. So Parson, integrated approach. Merton, he proposed middle range theory. This theory is also we will be discussing as an example. And he also highlighted the concept of manifest latent functions. Guys, this is a question separately. There's a question, there's a question, there's a question. So I'm adding these points here. Details are mentioned in the notes and in the actual lecture. So here I'm just mentioning what all things need to be covered. Since you are studying these are separately in the thinkers chapter, just one liner is enough here. Manifest functions which are directly seen, latent functions which are hidden functions, details with examples, everything we will discuss. Similarly, middle range theory, you should not go too abstract like Parson, should not go too elementary like Durkheim. You should stay in between. That's what middle range theories which are proposed by Merton, and he demonstrated also like his theory of anomy, reference group, etc. That also we will be covering. Okay. So combining approach, micro macro integration we discussed now. Okay, inductive deductive approach, you can mention Karl Popper. I have clearly discussed this in the notes. You can download it with the link below. And then scientific humanistic fusion, sociological imagination thought, C. Wright Mills, you can mention. Now the emerging perspective, new perspectives which came after that, structuralism, phenomenology, ethnomethodology. So that's what you're going to study in your second chapter. Once you're done with the first chapter, second chapter we'll be starting with positivism and then non-positivism. In non-positivism, you're going to discuss phenomenology, ethnomethodology, etc. Okay, so here positivism, it's about objective understanding of objective reality. When it comes to non-positivism, it is going to be subjective understanding of subjective reality. Okay, so but there are three stages which I need to discuss if I talk about positivism. Positivism, you're studying objectively, scientifically, what? Objective reality. Okay, so I'll just write objective understanding of objective reality. See, here it is not important. I'll be explaining this in detail, just mentioning this here. Then non-positivism. So there you are saying it is not possible to study objectively. Scientific approach is not possible because you're dealing with human beings. So it need to be subjective. So what you're studying is also subjective. How you're studying is also subjective. See, here the question is how you study and what you study. So how you study, objective. What you study, objective reality. When it comes to here, how you study, subjective. What you study, you're studying human beings, which is also subjective. So that's the difference, that's a change. Objective understanding of objective reality became subjective understanding of subjective reality. But in between there is a stage, that's where Weber comes. So these things I'll discuss in detail later, guys. If you focus now more on this, you'll get confused and you'll think that it is difficult, but it's not. I just want to mention here just because I am talking about the slide. Okay, so what Weber says is, you're studying human beings. So what you study is subjective, but how to study? Study objectively. So what Weber says is objective understanding of subjective reality. So this is how that evolution to phenomenology. The postmodern approach, we'll have to discuss this, all these relativism, discourse analysis, etc. All these can be asked as separate questions. Now, interdisciplinary approach, which I have again mentioned, sociology of health, which sociology is permeating through each and every aspect of social life now in different disciplines also. So clinical sociology, criminal sociology, all these you can give example. Criminal sociology related to crime and deviance. Clinical sociology, applying sociological knowledge in solving practical problems. Functional perspective, we'll discuss in detail when it comes to thinker, especially Emile Durkheim. So there we will talk about examining how society maintains its stability. We'll look at the functions, and then institutions, analyzing the role of various social institutions like family, religion, etc. in functional terms, how they became complementary. Okay, and then integration. So we'll study the different parts, how it integrates society and work together. Conflict perspective that we need to discuss, especially when it comes to Marx. So there we will be discussing, examining inequalities and power struggles in society. So these are very, very simple topics, guys. Don't worry about that. Social change, how conflicts lead to social change, and the critical analysis part. Methodological diversity. We'll also discuss this in the third chapter. What is quantitative methods to study sociology? So why I have mentioned here is because all these part of scope of sociology. When you talk about the scope widened, all these need to be mentioned over there. Quantitative, you're dealing in numbers. Qualitative, you are dealing in observations, case studies like that. Okay, and then you go for mixed approaches. Now, future perspectives, I told you, you can expect questions on artificial intelligence and sociology, etc. Use of sociology in artificial intelligence, all these things, all these can be asked. So, big data analysis, global sociology. Yeah, that's all about this session, guys. I hope things are very clear. So, the scope is widening, scope is very broad, and there is, unending. So, that's how your answer should look like. So, don't study this if you are just starting sociology. Once you complete the syllabus, the answer will be there in your mind automatically. Don't worry about that. Okay, if you're learning from a right mentor, and then the answer is there now I hope you understood very clearly how to frame the answer by combining all the elements that you're going to study in the future sessions. So this is how it is done, and this is how it have to work. Otherwise, no need to spend time on this particular topic as such. So that's it guys. Thank you so much. See you guys.